Recording. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in on a lovely Tuesday. Maybe it's morning, maybe it's afternoon here in London where I am. It is lunchtime, and I am really excited to do this session on how to turn your career dreams into reality. We're going to be spending the next hour talking about planning our career goals, but also overcoming common career-related challenges, whether that is finding the confidence to ask for what we want, whether that's tapping into our network, building our network, chasing ongoing conversations that maybe aren't turning out the way we want them to. A lot of the people who are showing up today are women, so we're also going to talk about some of the complexities around navigating the workplace as a woman, whether that is because of the fact that you're in a male-dominated industry, a fact I know very well, having worked in tech for so long, maybe because you are a caregiver, you're a parent, and you are trying to have it all, juggle it, and you just keep feeling like you're failing. Whatever it might be, we had a ton of questions come in, I think over 80 questions, all around these themes, and I'm going to do my very best to answer them over the next hour. And more than anything, what I'm trying to do is give you tools, frameworks, activities, guidance, things that have worked for me, things that have worked for the people that I have coached and supported through the Hustle Crew community, in the hope that these tools, frameworks, activities allow you to month from now, 1 year from now, look back at this moment of time today and go, I've really grown. I'm so proud of myself. That is what I want for you. I want for you to look back, whatever happens, whether or not you hit the goals you wanted, whether or not you realize those weren't the right goals for you, wherever you are 1 year from now, I want you to look back at today and go, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of myself. Look at who I am today. Look at how I've blossomed. Look at how I've evolved. Because I really think that's the best that we can hope for and the best that we can ask for. There's only so much that we can control. And let's face it, we're living in a society that is kind of knocking our confidence all the time. So it takes that extra bit of effort to show up every day. And the fact that you even shown up here when a lot of people, myself included, sometimes feel like, can't we just check out now? It's December. Like, why are we still making effort? The fact that you've just shown up today to invest in yourself is, testament to the ambition and the drive and determination you have to succeed. So I know you are going to continue to be a successful person, whether you believe that or not today. It's going to happen, and this is just one step on that journey. So just keep showing up, because showing up is half the work. So with that in mind, please continue to use the chat. Oh, hey, Arena, lovely to see you. Use the chat to affirm what I'm saying, to ask follow-up questions. Maybe share something that you really want to get out of today. Are you looking for a new job? Are you working for yourself? Are you trying to move into working for yourself? Are you actually thinking about what's next for you? Maybe you've been super successful and now you're ready for your next challenge. Whatever it is, we're building some community here. So be a little vulnerable, be courageous. Let us know what you want to get out of this next hour, and hopefully the slides and the discussion I've prepared will help with that. So with that in mind, I'm just going to share my slides. How to turn your career dreams into reality. So this is super actionable advice. Now, some of you are familiar with me. I've met you, I've supported you, I've known you. But if you're new to me, I started a business in 2016. It feels like yesterday, but it was some years ago now. I spent a year trying to fundraise from the world of venture capital. Didn't work out. So, I made it my side hustle. And at the time, I guess the world thought very differently about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We didn't have Elon Musk owning Twitter. We didn't have the Orange Man about to take over the White House. So it was a very different world. And I was able to get a lot of incredible media attention about the work I was doing to challenge systemic oppression and level the playing field in the workplace. And my company was able to do amazing work delivering diversity and inclusion training to incredible companies like the NHS, Sky, Comcast, Notion. And in 2022, so for the last 2 years, I've been in the very privileged position to work full time for myself. So I am my own boss. And you know what? I think I'm a great boss. But yeah, I guess you have to take my word for it. So what I'm doing today is building on the wealth of experience I've built, not just from the times where I've worked for myself, but times where I've worked in small startups. I worked at Groupon. I worked in big tech companies like Amazon. Just a couple of years ago, I was a VP in a scaling company acquired by private equity as a VP. So I've done everything from junior roles to VP roles. I've been a budget holder. I've not been a budget holder. I've been a hiring manager. I've been on every side of the table. And I know the corporate world quite well. And what I'm trying to do over this session is really kind of teach you how to not just survive in this corporate landscape, but really thrive, and thrive in a way where you are not compromising your values or your beliefs or who you are. So we're going to start with auditing strengths, move into realistic timelines for goals, talk a little bit about experiments, boundaries, and accountability, and then talk a little bit about managing failure and rejection and how you decide what is next. And then I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about Q&A and also give you a chance to win some careers coaching with me. So let us start with auditing your strengths. And actually, before I jump into that a little bit, I would just love to get a bit of audience participation in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current levels of self-awareness? So let's say 1 is, who am I? What do I like? What am I good at? And 10 is like, I am Zen, I am, Buddha, I am so in tune with my strengths and my weaknesses. I'm so self-aware. I'm vibrating on the highest frequency. On a scale of 1 to 10 on self-awareness, how would you rate yourself now? So Lillian is saying 6.5, Anushi is saying 6 or 7, Viv is giving herself a 10. Yes, Viv, love that energy. 7, we see, okay, 8, 6, 4, 7, a 6, a 9, and 8. Okay, cool. So what I love about this exercise is that it's a challenge for us to think about whether we've really done that work of understanding, okay, if I'm really honest with myself, what am I good at? And if I'm really honest with myself, where could I develop more? Where could I improve more? Where could I ask for help? And if I'm honest on my life, that's been like a constant journey. There have been times where I was the most tenured person on my team. I'd been in the organization 3 years, and I felt that my level of self-awareness in that role, in that team, was really high. But then I moved teams, new company, and suddenly I was back to a lower number, thinking, oh gosh, I've got a lot to learn and I'm not sure where to start. Same kind of thing evolving as a woman. There are times maybe like in my 20s when I was single and I was like, woo, living my best life. This is amazing. Rating myself a really high score because I just felt so in control of things. But then transitioning into a long-term partnership, living with a partner and having to navigate that, scoring myself maybe on a slightly lower number. So I think it's really important for us to challenge ourselves to have these reflections every now and then and kind of go, okay, how am I doing in terms of knowing myself right now? And what can I do to know myself better? And I do believe it's an ongoing journey, and it's something that we should give ourselves the permission to reflect on all the time. So I think auditing your strengths is such an important part of planning your career goals. How can you even plan goals if you don't know what is a realistic goal, right? Your strengths determine what's realistic. Your strengths determine how quickly you can get those goals. Your strengths also show you your weaknesses, right? And your weaknesses are where you need to ask for help or where you need to invest in yourself. So what I've written here is the key to success lies in how you apply your strengths to a challenge. Find roles that play to your strengths. The second bullet point at the top says, don't undervalue what comes easily or naturally to you, because that is your competitive advantage. I am often paid to speak on a panel or be a keynote speaker at an event. When I was young, growing up, the youngest of like 3 siblings, my brother and sister used to laugh at me for talking too much. They'd be like, oh, Abba always has something to say. Well, having something to say gets me paid now. So, this thing that came easily or naturally to me has ended up being a competitive advantage. And I just wonder, what is your competitive advantage? What is your natural genius, your unique strength? And are you giving yourself credit for that? Like, if you are really good at organizing things, keeping people running on time, finding a good deal on this, that, or the other, don't underestimate how valuable that can be for your team, for your business, for your household, and consider that a strength because it is. Just because something is easy for you doesn't mean it's not valuable, doesn't mean it's not, useful and exciting and something that others might actually find really hard or struggle with. Another thing I wanted to say around strengths is, how do your strengths apply to networking? A lot of the questions that were submitted when people signed up for this webinar were like, oh, I don't know how to network. I'm not good at networking. I'm not good at tapping into my network. I don't know how to ask stuff in my network. And I think where people go wrong is people go straight to an ask, like, oh, I really want that person to give me an intro, or I really want that person to give me advice. But you are a person, so you also know what it feels like when someone who you haven't heard from in donkey's years crawls out of the woodwork and suddenly asks you for your precious time. Wouldn't it be nicer if before they asked you for your precious time, they just asked you how you are? They just asked you how your summer has been. They just asked you what you've got planned for Christmas and New Year. I think networking is about asking questions and building relationships. And once you have a good, healthy foundation of a relationship, then you can make a transactional request. So if you're good at asking questions, which most adult humans are, then you're good at networking. You just need to make sure you're starting with the right questions. So here are my actions, my advice for you in terms of auditing your strengths and using your strengths to plan your goals and build your confidence. The first thing is have a yay folder. Now, a yay folder is my word for it, but you might want to call it a positive feedback folder. You might want to call it an affirmations folder. You might want to call it a praise folder, whatever it is. Anytime you get positive feedback, it doesn't matter who it is, who gave it to you. Anytime you get that little confidence boost, you save it. You screenshot every little nugget of praise. That report was amazing. Oh, thanks for unloading the dishwasher. Like, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, when someone's thanked you for something that you have done, that is a reminder of how amazing you are, and you use it to boost your confidence. Other things that you can do to get from the 4s and the 5s and the 6s on that self-awareness spectrum to like the 9s and the 10s, it's surveys. So VIA Institute is an incredible organization. They literally have a quiz called Strengths Finder, and it's free. So you go on VIA Institute, you go on the Strengths Finder quiz, and it asks you a bunch of different questions, and it comes up with what your strengths are. So in my case, some of my strengths were showing gratitude. One of my strengths was curiosity. One of my strengths was, confidence in how I speak and how I present. So these are things that I've tried to integrate into my role, into my job, into my responsibilities in my team. Showing gratitude can be a superpower because it's a really powerful way to build a connection. Like just showing an appreciation for something like, hey, I noticed you did the coffee run today. I'm really thankful for that. And people are like, oh, that's really nice of you. I remember once going to a food hall and asking the gentleman running the stall, as I approached him, finally coming to my turn after a really long queue, how are you? And he was like, oh, he's like, no one has asked me how I am today. You're going to get your meal for free. And I was like, winning. So, again, little things like finding out what those strengths are, and then leaning into them, building habits around them, I think will be really, really, really powerful and help you unlock your confidence and opportunities. 16 personalities is another quiz that you can do. There are so many ways to know yourself deeply. Asking friends, what are patterns of behavior that you think I need to break to reach my goals? What do you think is stopping me from being more confident? Maybe you're someone who does a lot of negative self-talk. Maybe you're someone who, is a bit defensive in the face of constructive criticism. Your friends, your family, your partner, these are all great sources of information where you can say, hey, listen, I've been thinking about my career, I've been thinking about my business, and this is something that's really important for me to achieve over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months. In your opinion, what is going to hold me back from that? What do you think? How do you think I'm going to get into my own way about that? And you'd be surprised what you hear. Maybe someone's going to say, do you know what? Like, I think you're just too impatient. I think you don't let things, move at their own pace. Or maybe someone's going to say, I think you're always biting off more than you can chew, and then you get burned out. Like, why don't you, be more accommodating and take things one step at a time. But consider where you have these sources of information around you and invite that knowledge into your life. So a few more things about auditing strengths before we move on. How do your future ambitions align with the strengths you're aware of today? Are you looking for that pay rise, looking for that promotion? Are you looking to start consulting, start your own business? Are you looking to move industries, move companies, whatever it is? Weigh that up against what you know to be your strengths. And if you scored yourself below a 5 on that self-awareness track, maybe the first step is for you to try and get from like a 3 to a 5, from a 4 to a 6, from a 5 to a 7. Maybe the first step is for you to actually go, do you know what? I need to go back to the drawing board a bit. I need to actually go back to the drawing board, identify what my strengths are, ask the questions, do the surveys, do a bit of journaling, look back on my last years of work. And then when I have a pretty solid idea of what I know I'm good at, what I know I can add value on and deliver on, I'm going to start mapping out some goals. And I've written in the second bullet point things that you can do to improve your self-awareness, journaling, coaching, therapy, accountability groups. You don't necessarily need money for these things. You can join accountability groups on Discord or Slack channels. You can even just go on Twitter or Instagram and be like, hey, followers, like 1 month from now, I want to have journaled every day. Like, ask me if I don't. But you know yourself best. So pick the tools and the habits that work for you. The third thing is use past data to inform your future. What did you learn about yourself in previous roles? What kind of feedback did you receive? Yes, not all feedback is created equal, but still, what did you learn in your last job? What did you learn from your last boss? What did you learn from your last team? And I think this penultimate bullet point is so important. Knowing what you have experienced in the past, knowing yourself, what is the kind of work environment and role where you feel you can really thrive? And is that aligned with your goals? And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of us are like, do you know what? I really want to earn more money. And it's like, okay, so you want to earn more money, but do you want to work in a company that's making you come into the office 5 days a week and work until 9 or 10 p.m. Maybe, come in at 6 a.m. Like, do you want to do, a 90-hour week? Because if you do, then I can find you a job where you earn more money. But actually, money might not be that important to you, as much as your time. So really doing that work of understanding, like, well, actually, what makes me happy and what makes me feel secure and safe, and working backwards from that could be a lot more impactful. And then the final thing on that is to say, are you defining success on your own terms? What does success look like for you today? What is really important to you? How do you want to spend your time? And I've written at the very last, bit of that slide, if you had 1 month to live, would you be doing what you're doing now? And of course, very few of us would. We'd probably be, I don't know, running around adventuring. But the reason I say that is sometimes we feel as though like time is an endless resource. We're always going to have all the time in the world, and then suddenly a year's gone by, and then another year's gone by. So I think it's really important to actually think, a year from today, where would I like to be? What would be making me feel happy? And a year from today, if I looked at my life and thought, wow, I'm really pleased with this. What are the ingredients? What are the components? Not just in terms of your job, but even in your like wider lifestyle, the experiences that you've gained, the people who are around you, and trying to make goals that are aligned with that. You spend most of your time at work, and that means the people you speak to the most are the people that you work with. So you really want to make sure you enjoy their company and you like them and they're interesting and they're kind. And if you're in a job where the people around you aren't very supportive and aren't very nice, that's going to bleed into the time you spend outside of work. There are times where I've been in really stressful jobs and really stressful environments, and then I leave work and then I go home and then I'm talking about work. So yeah, being really like intentional with what, what do I want to spend my time doing, both in work and outside of work, because they're so related. So let me know in the chat when it comes to auditing your strengths and aligning goals to your strengths and creating your own personal definition of success. What here has resonated with you? Where are you getting more questions bubbling up to the surface? This is your time. So let me know. And while you're thinking of that, I'm just going to move on to the next topic, which is setting realistic timelines for your goals. So, contrary to popular belief, Beyonce didn't wake up like this. She has spent years training her voice, her body, her business acumen, and of course, she has resources. She has teams, assistants, personal trainers, nutritionists, you name it. So, when it comes to your goals and where you want to be, make sure you are setting a realistic timeline, because you might not have 12 hours a day to devote to this evolution you're about to embark on. So be realistic. What can you achieve in a day, a week, a year, knowing that unexpected challenges are inevitable, because that is life. Also, capitalism is real. We've all got bills to pay. What risk can you afford to take? And how much can you invest in your career transformation, both from a time perspective, an energy perspective, a money perspective? So when it comes to like planning your goals, where you want to be, how you want to evolve, the first thing is to like start with finances. For example, if you're about to quit a job or do anything that could impact your earnings, invest in a new business you're about to start, think about how that affects your cost of living, your savings, whatever it might be, and really be sensible there. The second thing is, remember, you have multiple priorities. You don't spend 24 hours a day planning and building your career. You spend the time that you're at work working. And then when you have spare time, you're eating, sleeping, exercising, talking to your friends, talking to family. Then there's all that time watching TV, scrolling social media, commuting, cooking, going to the toilet, whatever it is. Then there's a little bit of time left where you can self-actualize and think about the future and plan your goals. So be realistic about how you're juggling these priorities, because career planning kind of sits outside of work, because work is like your to-do lists and your tasks. And then on top of your to-do lists and tasks, you have the time to plan your goals. So, it's really important that you are realistic about what you can achieve. And there's some things that are non-negotiables, right? Like you need to always sleep, eat, look after yourself. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I don't think it's realistic for you to expect to do serious career goals, planning and setting and moving if like fundamental needs are unmet. If your mental health isn't in a good place, you need to start there before you start planning and achieving your career goals. If your physical health is not in a good place, again, you need to like start there and go, okay, let me get into good mental and physical shape so that I can, from a very positive, wholesome place, think about what I want to achieve and how I'm going to get there. And then the third bit I wanted to touch on really is like market conditions. So a lot of people in the questions when they registered said, I'm thinking about moving jobs. I'm not sure if it's the right time, or I've just started my own company. It's not quite working out, or I'm thinking about consulting. Look, the economy's not great. We all know that, right? We are all spending more than we used to on much smaller pieces of food, and bills are going up, and eating out is more expensive, and traveling is more expensive. And we've seen restructurings and layoffs. We've seen people that we love who work hard and are good at their jobs let go. So I think when it comes to career planning and achieving, it's also quite important to zoom out and go, maybe the next 6 months aren't the time where I'm going to reach those big goals. Maybe it's the time where I'm going to do the small work so that when things get better, I can really go hard on these things. So my suggestion was to maybe make a timeline of little goals. What do you want to achieve over the next 6 months? And maybe that's where some of that foundational stuff comes in. Over the next 6 months, I'm going to work on increasing my self-awareness. I'm going to work on getting to know myself better, working on my mental health, working on my physical health, working on my finances. Then in 12 months, that's when I'm really going to start putting those big asks out to my network, to my universe, in terms of moving around or whatever it might be. Or I'm going to be negotiating my new promotion or my pay rise. And then in 18 months, that's when, 6 months into that new job or with that new salary, I'm going to start thinking about moving house or whatever it might be. You're all unique individuals with your own plans, but my hope is that you can sort of apply these lessons to what you're doing. So again, just a few things for you to think about. If you are staying in the same company but looking to get a pay rise or promotion, zoom out a little bit and think about the financials of the company and how that shapes your ask. If the company's not doing well, maybe you start the conversation, but you acknowledge that the pay rise won't take effect until there's more certainty around the company's performance. Nothing stops you from initiating that conversation with your manager and letting them know that you can see, the situation and you can be flexible. If you're looking for a new role, again, like think about what opportunities match your experiences and try to be open and realistic about that. If you're not where you want to be right now, think about what you've learned, and how can you live the next year in a way that's more aligned to your preferences. Okay, I really thought I'd have more of X or Y by now, but that hasn't worked out. And not every variable is in your control. What is in your control? What can you impact? What can you change? And how can you focus on those elements moving forward? If you're someone who's experienced a lot of change, a lot of disruption, get used to it, is what I would advise. How can you make yourself someone who is better prepared to deal with change so that change doesn't have to disrupt you, bring you down, or drain you? I'm an entrepreneur, so change is an inevitable part of my life. One day the clients are happy, one day the clients are not, one day the clients are there, one day the clients are not. So for me, it's about building consistency where I can control it. And that's in my habits, in my rituals, from meditation to movement to journaling, even to like playtime. I have a piano at home. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. I can always sit down at my piano and have a bit of piano time. And that's fun for me. No matter what's going on in the world, I can always run a bath. And that is on me. So, thinking about what you can do to create a positive constant is really powerful. And quite a few people talked about, how do I not lose faith, on this journey to fulfill my ambitions and do well? And then facing setback, how can I stay positive? And, things that have worked for me are just like talking to people who I am so impressed by about their own failures. Failure is actually just a part of the human journey, and it's a testament to your courage. If you're not failing, you're not growing. You're staying in your comfort zone. If you're not facing rejection, you're not putting yourself out there. So, I try to fail as often as I can, and I try to get rejected as often as I can, because now it's become a metric for me trying things, and it's become a metric for me putting myself out there. I bid on requests for proposals that much larger companies are going after, but I was like, I'll put my hat in the ring. Let's see what happens. And I think if you can take that attitude, that will also be really helpful. And whatever content helps you feel positive in the face of failure, rejection, I think is really important. Sorry, my doorbell's just gone. But yeah, so it might be listening to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast. It might be listening to the Artist Way webinar, the Artist Way book, whatever it is. Find the content that is uplifting for you and consume it. A lot of people who I would consider mentors, guides, they don't know who I am. They've never met me. I just consumed their content and found it really positive. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about setting realistic timelines for your goals. Again, jump into the chat with your follow-up questions. Let me know what resonated for you or what questions are kind of surfacing for you as I share this. Now I want to talk a little bit about experiments, boundaries, and accountability. So I think it's really important to give yourself permission to redefine what success means to you at regular intervals as you evolve. So you are now old enough to realize that the person you are today is not the person you were 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago. You are on a constant journey of learning things, experiencing things, and evolving. And therefore, you should give yourself permission to redefine what success means. What success meant to you when you first graduated. In my case, success for me was just getting a job. I worked in retail during uni, and I was like, I want a job where I have a desk. That would be cool. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, I want a job that gives me responsibility. I want a job that helps me travel. As I'm getting older now, I'm like, I want a job that gives me flexibility so that I can do other things outside of work. Get comfortable saying no to what your gut wants to decline. That's something that's so important. For me in particular, I've had to really kill the people pleaser in me, because if I'm pleasing other people, I'm usually not pleasing myself. And the only way you can plan your goals and achieve your goals is if you are doing that work of putting yourself first. Not other people's goals, not your boss's goals, not your family's goals, your goals. And you really have to just kill that people pleaser in you. As women in patriarchy, we're socialized to be people pleasers. And this is what stops our confidence a lot of the time, stops our confidence from growing. It's what stops us from asking for pay rises and promotions. Oh, I don't want to annoy anyone. I don't want to look greedy. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. Meanwhile, our, men peers, a lot of them feel totally confident to make people feel uncomfortable, or feel totally happy to ask for things, ask for a promotion when they work there for 3 months, ask for a pay rise, before they've even signed the contract. So I think it's really important for you to just kill the people pleaser in you if you want to thrive in the current career landscape. And then the final thing I wanted to say there was just get your friends to hold you accountable to your desired evolution. So if you're now at that stage where you're like, okay, I know exactly where I want to be, but I know that it's going to take a bit of effort from me on this front or that front, tell the people who love you and care about you, like, this is something I'm really going to try. I'm really going to try and push back. I'm really going to try and finish work on time. I'm going to try and not work on the weekends, whatever it is. Tell the people who love you so that they can hold you accountable and say, hey, I see you doing that thing you said you don't want to do, just letting you know. And then the final things I wanted to say on that were, when it comes to your career, you should see it as a work in progress. Like, even the most successful people are still trying out new ways of working, trying out different ways to network, to promote themselves. So give yourself that grace too. If you're someone that wants to do more posting on social media, try something. Does it work? Great. If it doesn't, try something else. Are you going to be focused on LinkedIn? Are you going to be focused on Instagram? Are you going to be starting a Substack or another newsletter? Just try out different things. Same with networking. Are you going to go to big conferences? Are you going to go to small events? Are you going to, go to supper clubs? Are you going to scroll Eventbrite and see what you like? You are unique. You are your own person. What works for me might not work for you. So just see yourself as a work in progress. See every aspect of planning your career and achieving your goals as little experiments. Today, I'm going to try this little experiment to tap into my network. Next week, I'm going to try this little experiment to promote myself online. Next week, I'm going to try this little experiment to build my confidence, and then report back. Tell yourself, okay, what were the results of that experiment? I liked this, but I didn't like that. Should I do it again? Yes or no. And once you understand the results that are working for you, the preferences that you have, then you can start to turn those experiments into habits. I also think it's really important to identify boundaries for yourself. What are your red lines? What do you just know you need to say no to more so you can say yes to something else? So movement has become a really important part of me. Focusing on my mental health and improving my mental health. And I love socializing with my friends, and it's so lovely and it's so great. And I love watching TV, but sometimes I need to say no to those things so that I can prioritize going to a yoga class or going for a walk. And if something matters to you, researching jobs, researching business ideas, networking events, block them out in your calendar. You have to guard the time that will help you reach your goals, that will help you build your confidence. Doing all the little habits, all the little experiments, all the little tasks, those things take time. So you need to create that time and carve out that time. And then in terms of accountability, I just realized there was a typo on that. So I'll make sure I fix that before I email you all a recording. When it comes to accountability, again, use your support network to help you stay accountable. So use your support network to help you stay focused on these little experiments that you want to try, on all these new things that you want to do. Cool. So we're just coming up to some of the final pieces of the presentation, and then I've tried to collate as many of the questions together as I can. But please, again, feel free to use the chat. Let me know what you think. Is this helpful? Is this what you were hoping to get? Is there anything that you would like to hear more about? This is your time. I'm here to help you. So let me know. So I just want to spend a bit of time talking about managing failure and rejection and sort of planning your next move. So again, sorry, ignore the typos here on the first two bullet points, but just focusing on the squares here. Failure. The story you tell yourself matters. So did you fail or did you learn? And as I get older, I really try and tell myself that every failure is an important lesson that I needed to learn. Every failure is a learning opportunity. And over the years of doing this, 7, 8 years of telling myself that, it really has helped. And if you haven't read a book called Mindset by Dr. Carol S. Dweck, who's a professor of psychology at Stanford, I really recommend it because that's kind of what all her research is about. Her research is about how really successful people are able to turn setbacks into lessons, not complete full stops or blockers. So yeah, I think you just need to change your relationship to the word failure. And think about athletes. Athletes show up, compete. They don't know if they're going to win. They don't know if they're going to get first prize, but they put their all into it. And that's just part of the experience. So, failure is again a sign that you're in the game. Same kind of thing with rejection. Again, because we are trained to be people pleasers, we fear rejection. Rejection becomes a sign of our identity is rejected, our whole self is rejected. It's complex, I get it, but you can't control everything. And, a no today could be a yes next year. So the no to your promotion request, to your pay rise request, it could just be timing. It's not always, it's very rarely just you. It's other variables that you can't see or you don't know about. So again, change your relationship to rejection. Try and think about how you can, in the face of rejection, pick yourself back up again. And then the final thing I wanted to say on that was knowing when to move on is really, really hard. And that's where I think your priorities come back into play and your realistic timelines and also your boundaries. If you are thinking, oh, maybe time for me to move on from this job or maybe time for me to move on from this relationship, interrogate that feeling. Is that because you feel that your time could be better spent elsewhere? And if so, try a little experiment, put a bit more of that time into exploring what that elsewhere is and see how that makes you feel. Cool. So just coming up now to the final section. I'm going to go through some of the questions that have been submitted in advance, but I would also invite you, as we're sort of in the final 10, 15-ish minutes, to share more questions in the chat or just share comments. Have any of the things I've shared so far connected with you? Are these things you're already doing? If so, please feel free to share examples of how you're working on your boundaries, how you're working on defining success for yourself. If it sparked any other questions in you, also feel free to ask them. I've also shared the link for a feedback form. So I'm always happy to receive feedback. It helps me know how I can improve future webinars. So if you have a chance to fill out the feedback while we're going through these last questions, that would be great. And I'm going to pick a name at random to do a careers coaching call with me. Cool. So from the pre-submitted questions, we had a few different things, and I'm going to try and answer these questions referring back to some of the tools and frameworks I suggested. So someone said, how can I secure a promotion and a pay rise? I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and talk about strengths. The most powerful way to build a case for increasing your value is to demonstrate it. And, whether that's a proposal, whether that's a shopping list, whether that's a summary, look back on the last year, the last 2 years, the last 3 years, and show your evolution. Show in numbers, in data points, what you have contributed, how you have grown. Bring those screenshots of praise from clients and teammates and build the case for how you are not the person that you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You are a much more valuable team player. You are someone who has delivered results, and those results deserve a promotion and pay rise. And again, back to that point on setting a realistic timeline, be open with your manager and your HR team and say, I know that this might not be a realistic ask for today or even tomorrow, but I would like to work with you to understand when is this realistic time point where this additional pay can kick in, based on company performance, based on market conditions, and try and get some accountability on that. Maybe it's after the next quarter, after the next financial year. And that's where I think setting realistic goals and staying confident again is super important. If a company's like keeps telling you they're not going to give you a pay rise, not going to give you a pay rise, and they're not going to give you a pay rise, but it's so important for you to earn more money, maybe a new goal for you to have is, where is the job that will pay me this salary? And how can I start working on that plan over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months? And again, focusing on your strengths, focusing on your achievements to stay confident, screenshotting that praise, screenshotting those examples where people have said, you're amazing, I love how you did X, Y, Z. Like, those are the things that are going to help you stay confident. Tell the people around you that you want to build your confidence. And if there's something that you do well, you want to hear them say it. Tell the people around you that you want that affirmation, that you need that confidence boost, and they will start using that language to help build you up. We're really bad at asking for what we need. I'm really bad at asking for what I need. So if you are struggling with something, sometimes the best thing you can do is just turn to someone you love and trust and say, I am struggling with this. Can you help me? And you'd be surprised how someone will be like, you've got this, you're amazing, how can I help? Like, sometimes it's just a hug, sometimes it's someone to read over something, read over an email, whatever it is, feel free to ask. Another question was around sort of balancing career with family. I think the question specifically was like, can we really have it all? I personally am just like completely surprised that we even like ask such a preposterous question. Like, society reminds us day in, day out that like women are operating on a completely different level to men, and society doesn't want us to have it all. Like, look at how the media talks about women when we do anything. Like, it's like, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. So I think having it all depends on how you define all. Like, I can have all that is available to me without compromising my values or my health. I already have it all in that sense. And, having it all, I think, is really, defining success on our terms. And if you are someone who is juggling work and juggling motherhood or whatever it might be, it's really important that you look in the mirror and see someone who you're proud of, regardless of what's going on that day, because it's so difficult to show up when you are juggling so many different things. You're always disappointing someone. Since you're always disappointing someone at work, someone at home, how about you don't also disappoint yourself? How about we just look in the mirror and you're like, okay, ignore that, ignore that. I got you. You're amazing. Because I have to do that for myself. There are days sometimes where no one likes me. My clients don't like me. My team don't like me. Who knows who I've, annoyed in my families or my friends. But I need to know that my relationship with myself that day is good, because that I can control. So that's what I would say. I'm like finding the balance. I think balance is a scam. There's no such thing as balance. There's just surviving and there's thriving. And for me, I just try to be really lacking in criticism and judgment of myself. The determinant of the success of my life is me. It's not what my boss thinks or the media thinks or whatever. And sometimes that means I don't go on social media, because social media is also not reality. And you can see people who seem to have it all, thriving, beautiful, thin, happy, rich, whatever. And then your brain forgets that it's not reality and starts to play a comparison game. So it's really important for me to avoid playing the comparison game and focus on what's real and what's important. So someone also asked, how do I know when it's time to quit a company? I think that's really interesting. sometimes questions pop into our head because it's like our spirit or our soul is like inviting us to contemplate something that maybe we're not ready to make real yet. So if you're like, should I leave my company? In a way, it's kind of like this bud, this bud is growing, this bud of change. Like whether or not you're ready to take action on that change, maybe you don't have enough information yet. But the fact that you're already starting to think about it is the invitation, from you, from your inner self, from the universe, whatever you want to call it, to start opening up some space to reflect on that question. So only you can decide if it's the right time to quit a company based on how much money you have, based on how many options you have available, based on like stability and how much you value that, market conditions, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're already thinking about it, I feel like that's a signal that you need to put a bit more thought into that and maybe start planning out what quitting that company looks like. And in a similar way, someone asked, when it comes to networking, how do I know whether to keep pursuing this relationship if someone's not, giving back what I expect, they're not responding, or this, that, and the other? Again, what is that narrative that you have already shared in that question alluding to? I feel like your answer is embedded in that question somehow, and maybe it just needs a bit more reflection. Um, maybe you're just looking for someone to give you the permission to abandon that because you already feel that your time could be better spent elsewhere. I'm just going to take a pause and read some of the comments in the chat. People are saying, Natalia, super helpful and affirming of the journey. Loved your quote earlier about how if you're not failing, you're not growing. You can keep that, put it on a post-it. Hopefully it will be helpful for you. Anushi saying, love this. I'm working on not deriving my self-worth from work. Okay, when you get there, let me know how, because I'm also doing that. Internal validation, like I have to just keep telling myself, like, internal validation, internal validation. And it's really interesting, kind of going back to childhood and starting to understand, where did I first feel that like my accomplishments and my achievements determine my self-worth. I grew up in an immigrant household, and education was very important to my parents. If I got 98% on a test, my dad would say, what about the other 2%? And he meant so well for me, but that from a young age made me think anything less than 100 is bad. And that now as an adult, I realize, like, no, 98% is amazing. Like, celebrate that. That's so good. That's so impressive. So I've been on that journey to try and understand the roots of that. Viv is saying, all great inspiration and some really useful reminders when it's important to look back and reset. Thank you. Claire also saying, this has been great. I love how you communicate these ideas. Do you have any tips or courses on other ways to become a better public speaker or presenter? I recommend joining your local like improv group or theater company, because I did a lot of drama at school. I did a lot of school plays. And what's really amazing about embodying different characters and communicating their messages with authenticity is that when you then play the character of yourself, which you're not really playing, you're just living, you have so many more tools and devices with which to do that. So I credit a lot of my ability to communicate to being on stage and embodying different characters and different people, and then being able to take all the things I learned into that. Adam is saying, really nice, clear steps to take. I've never really had a clear perspective of where I would like to get to, and I'm excited to start working on this. So Adam, there's some really great resources out there. There's like, is it 40,000 hours, 20,000 hours? Like there's like a careers community that someone at Oxford Uni started, and which is now grown. But that's sort of like, it's trying to convince people who don't quite know what to do something that makes a positive impact on the world. But I really recommend that as a starting point. And then again, a lot of that stuff around self-awareness too. A few other comments on having it all. You can have it all, but not all at once. Yeah, that's really powerful. I love that. And leading a cookie cutter life is not having it all. Absolutely agree. Someone, Nokuzola, saying, I love the idea of thinking about not normalizing constantly disappointing yourself. I really try to be my biggest fan. And when I look at women who I admire, like Rihanna, she has that energy where she's just like, I'm here, so things are going to be great. And I really like that. I like that like unapologetic celebration of oneself. And I also feel like it's such a like finger up to patriarchy that's trying to make us feel bad and like make us feel old and make us feel fat, or make us feel ugly, or make us feel lazy, or make us feel shy. I even sometimes think a lot of the confidence stuff is like gaslighting. It's like it's really hard to be confident when you're like always being like second guessed or rejected or judged or treated differently to people from dominant groups. So yeah, why don't we also work on, being our biggest fans all the time? And when it comes to negative self-talk, I often say to myself, like, would you talk to your best friend like that? Would you talk to your partner like that? And if you wouldn't talk to them like that, why are you talking to yourself like that? So yeah, I really try to challenge that a lot. So Rachel has asked, any advice on how to ask for more flexibility or to go part-time for childcare? So if your organization is kind of early on that journey of supporting working parents, what I would do is try to find some real examples from other companies who are doing this already. So whether that is going onto a website like Flexa Careers and reading up on some of the examples they gave, or looking at companies that are advertising there, whether that's just literally Googling like companies in X industry or X sector who, have flexible working policies, even going on ChatGPT and saying like, what would you advise, a company of my size in this industry do to better support parents, and seeing what ChatGPT says. Maybe you just have to do a bit of that work in terms of showing them what it could look like, from job sharing to working from home to even transitioning into a role where you can work outside of typical office hours. Maybe it's on you, unfortunately, a bit of extra work, but hello, welcome to the world now. You're going to have to like build a bit of a roadmap so that you can show them, here's some options that I've explored. Which ones do you think are realistic? Someone said, please, can you mention the name of the book again? It's Mindset by Dr. Carol S. Dweck. She also has a TED Talk, but I actually didn't enjoy her TED Talk very much. I thought the book was a lot more compelling because it had so many examples of all industries, all kinds of people talking about how setbacks shaped them and helped them succeed. I've put it in the chat. Loan says, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Did you fail or did you learn? Really powerful question to reflect on. Wow, great. I am so glad that you all really enjoyed it. I'm just going to do a quick scan to make sure I haven't left out any other questions. Also, final call for questions. If you have anything else that I haven't answered for you. I think that's kind of everything. So I guess what I'll just end with is to say that regardless of where you are today, I genuinely believe you will be somewhere greater tomorrow and the next month and the next year, purely because you have shown up today and put your energy into thinking about how you can improve. You are aware that there is a destination you are headed towards. You might not know exactly what it is. You might not know exactly how to get there, but what you are certain of is your desire to evolve and your desire to change. And no one can take that away from you. And that will never go away. So as long as that desire is there, that desire will become the fuel to spark your experiments, spark your curiosity, spark your habits, and spark the different changes that you can make. And a real metric of your success is always going to be that self-awareness. Like I said, all we can do is control our strengths and weaknesses. Play to our strengths, develop our weaknesses. Play to our strengths, develop our weaknesses. So at the very least, if you're tired, if you're lost, or you're exhausted, just set yourself the challenge. How can I continue to build my self-awareness? How can I get a little closer to understanding my strengths and weaknesses better? And that might literally be as simple as like a journaling prompt. Like, what do I think my current strengths are based on the job I have now? And what do I think are areas I can develop based on my last one-on-one, based on my last performance review? And don't forget to like build in time for these reflections, because unless you have time for journaling or like career research, it's never going to happen. And equally, don't forget to build in time for fun stuff too, positive stuff. And, just as another reminder, you really have to get the foundational stuff sorted first. If your mental health is not in a great place, focus on that first. Get to a place where your anxiety and your depression and whatever else are manageable. And then secondly, if your physical health is also not in a great place, Give yourself time to recover from your cold or your flu or whatever else you need to recover from. This is also what I mean by realistic goals. And if timelines are set back for whatever reasons, forgive yourself, forgive, the world, and just yeah, readjust, adapt and survive. So I will leave you with that. Please follow me on social media at Abadesi, at Hustle Crew Live. I'm launching new careers workshops in January, more to come. In the meantime, will email everyone a link to the recording and the deck. And please connect on LinkedIn and other social media platforms and enjoy the last few weeks of the year. See you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully, I will see you soon. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.